Alright, what's up, people? Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about aspect ratios in productions and why it's good, why the benefit of proper aspect ratios. The whole thing started, or the thought process started when I posted this on Facebook, and then I was like, well, I should make a video out of it. So the whole thing started the other day. We went to some family gathering, distant relatives for me, people I probably see once every 5 years. But at any rate, one of the person who was hosting the gathering, they had their television to where they're watching a football game or something like that, and they had the television to where they had the Zoom feature on. And the football game's in widescreen format, the TV's in widescreen format, but the Zoom feature was on, and it was cutting off the score. And one of the other people asked, they were making fun of the production because you couldn't see the score, so you didn't know who was winning. And the guy there, he's like, yeah, for the most part, I like it. I like the image bigger, but it's not very good when I'm watching sports games because then I can't see it. And I don't even know where the remote is, so I can't fix it. And it just got me thinking about, how people, they'll watch, they got their widescreen TV and a 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio video will come on the TV, and they'll hit the zoom feature to fill up the screen. But it's not a practical way of viewing your content. Your goal should not be to fill the screen. And especially if you just hit an arbitrary zoom button, because whenever the director of photography is composing shots and setting it up, he's keeping in mind, headroom and padding on the side and things like that nature. He's keeping those things in mind to make a pleasing composition. And if you just go hitting the zoom button, you start lopping off foreheads and all this other stuff because you're not keeping that composition in mind. But I figured I'd go for a more visual experience to kind of further explain this. So I'm going to pull up some stuff over here on the computer. Let's see. So first of all, I'll just kind of go through some different settings and what they are, what they mean, how they come up. So this is widescreen TV. And this is your typical 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio. We've all come to, recognize this because pretty much all television from the 1950s all the way up until, I'd say probably about 12 years ago, was all presented in this format. So when we watch it on the widescreen TV, you'll see it's pillar box, meaning 2 black bars on each side. But, that's how he wants you to do it. Now, if we were to go, putting this in and cutting crap off and zooming it in, then basically you just be having a box that's pretty much right here. And, right there for this particular shot, it's okay. But, if you, for a different shot, maybe the camera would have been down a little bit further or up a little bit further. You'd be cutting off half the characters' heads. So that's not good. Then with the advent of HD, then we come up with the 1.78 to 1 aspect ratio, which basically it fills the HD TV screen. That's the exact ratio that is every pixel on the screen, 1.78 to 1, which is the de facto standard format for all television programming now. For the most part. I guess some of them, they might deviate from that, but for the most part, 99% of productions are going to be in this format. And then we go to half of Hollywood productions are in this format, which is 1.86 to 1 aspect ratio. You'll see it has a slight black bar at the top, slight black bar at the bottom. It's a little bit wider than our TV. Now, why didn't they just set up HD TVs to be in the 1.86 to 1 aspect ratio? I don't know. Nobody knows. Because this film format's been around for crap since, the 50s? At least, I think. So, whatever. For whatever reason, they didn't set it up that way. But since they didn't set it up that way, we have the black bars are at the top and bottom to pad out the rest of the space to allow us to see the full image as it was shot. If we did any more of a zoom on this, you might be cutting off the edge of the sign, or something of that nature. And so I mean, it's not a practical way of watching your favorite production. And recently we started seeing a format 2:1, which I've seen in digital IMAX presentations. Inception had a 2:1. This is Jurassic World that has a 2:1. Trying to think what else. The Interstellar, the digital version of the IMAX sequences, I'm pretty sure that was a 2:1. There was some other film I can't remember that Chris Nolan did, but I think it was Interstellar, I think. But anyway, yeah, that's the IMAX digital presentation. And then we have the other de facto Hollywood standard, which is 2.4:1, or it's actually 2.39 or sometimes 2.35:1. But I just round up, say 241, because that's pretty much what everybody else does too. Most usually you'll be seeing your sci-fi epics in this, action films in this format, things like that. It's just a much wider angle of view. And then recently there's been talk about this format. It's been obsolete for decades. It was brought up by Quentin Tarantino with the Hateful Eight, the 2.76:1, the Ultra Panavision 70mm format, which he shot on 65mm for Hateful Eight. But this is a screen cap of Ben-Hur, the chariot race, epic scene shot in this format. A lot of the epics from the 50s and 60s were shot in this format as well. I actually got the chance the other day to go to Oklahoma City and exhibit the 70mm 2.76:1 aspect ratio presentation of the Hateful Eight. And let me tell you, it was actually quite astounding to witness. It was very fun, very enjoyable, and I highly recommend anybody who hasn't seen it to go out and see it. The film was okay. I'm not a huge Tarantino fan to begin with, but it was just really cool to see the technology or lack thereof at work. It was nice to me. It was organic. It was nice to see a production in film again. I haven't seen a movie on film in years, so it was really nice. So now that we got that out of the way, so we see what those are and how those are set up and that kind of thing. That's why it's good to allow the black bars to be there. The black bars are your friend. Just let them be there. It's not inhibiting your viewing whatsoever at the production. And I know a lot of people who aren't as engrossed in the technology as I am, or other movie buffs or things like that, who they just go and pick up a TV and pick up a Blu-ray and put it in. They're wondering, I got a widescreen TV, this is a widescreen Blu-ray, why is it not filling up the screen? Well, that's why, because there's different aspect ratios that were set up long ago for different uses. And it was either the director's decision or the director of photography's decision to set up in this particular aspect ratio, because they had the shots, the composition, everything in mind, and the aspect ratio they choose is how they plan to deliver that vision to the end viewer. But with that out of the way, there is some talk now, since a lot of the television shows were shot on film, to put them on Blu-ray, because Blu-ray does a very, very, very film does a very, very, very nice translation to Blu-ray. That's basically where we come up with Blu-ray. You can't do it on tape; it has to be on film, because you have to scan it at a higher resolution. Film lends beautifully to the format. Seinfeld was done on film. Star Trek was done on film. I mean, most shows back then were done on film. So with the HD masters for Seinfeld that you'll see on TBS, on Fox, on Hulu, and whatnot, they actually come up and they lopped it off to put it in widescreen format. Well, here's a demonstration of how the format looked on the DVD, and then the HD version on top of it. As you can see, they pushed out the sides a little bit more, and then they shrunk down, they chopped off the top and bottom, which is fine for this particular shop. But I mean, at the top of the menu, you're cutting off the word hot soup. So now we don't know if the soup is hot or the soup's cold. I mean, I guess it's trivial for most people, but still, we're never going to know. But I know some people will say, well, gosh, now we get to see that there's a phone in the background. We couldn't see there was a phone in the background originally, and that's true, sort of. I mean, the line's kind of right there. But, I mean, that's the consequence to messing with the aspect ratios, is now whoever is doing the cutting, they are the ones who have to make a decision. What was the director's intent? What was the director of photography's intent? What was the thing they were wanting you to focus on? What was their focus for this particular scene? This person's making all these decisions on the whim without consulting that guy for the most part. I mean, sometimes they consult them, but for the most part, they're not consulting them. So they don't know what the decision is. They're just lopping off tops and bottoms and stretching out the sides to fill out more space without taking into consideration what that particular artist's vision was. Same thing can be said about the Star Trek The Next Generation. They were toying and doing some test footage of how it would look in widescreen format. And for the Blu-rays, they just eventually relegated to just a full-screen original exhibition of the shows to begin with. But this is a good shot of what it would have looked like. And we got very, very close to cutting off his communicator. Yeah, they pushed out the sides a little bit more because, I mean, with 35 millimeter, there is more side that they can take advantage of than what was on the actual show, which is really surprising to me because I fear that they would just do the full frame of the negative, but they didn't. So yeah, they can push the sides out a little bit more, but then they got to cut off a lot of the top and bottom to take advantage of that. So yeah, there's another thing. You see the taller box is what the aspect ratio is of the Blu-ray. The wider box is what the aspect ratio was that they're toying with for doing the 1.78 to 1 conversion, but then ultimately decided against that. So that opens up another discussion. So what happens whenever I'm watching TV or my favorite program or whatever, and it's window boxed? Now, window box is this. When you're watching something on TV and there's black bars on all freaking blooming sides. Now that comes from the letterboxed DVDs and Laserdiscs and VHS tapes from the olden days. I have some letterbox VHS tapes that I bought. I remember when I was 13, Star Wars Special Edition came out on VHS, and me and my friend both went to a Walmart to buy it. He opted for the full screen version to fill up the entire screen. I opted for the widescreen version because I wanted to see the full window exactly as George Lucas envisioned it. Now the thing about Star Wars was it was shot in a 2:4:1 ratio, so it's really wide. And when you get to the scenes where there's two characters on either side, they're talking to each other, it does this thing called pan and scan where it focuses on one, and then it pans over to the other one, and it pans back to the one, and it pans over to the other one. It's really nauseating, to me anyway. And so that's why, I mean, even at 13, I was like, I gotta have the widescreen version. There's no way of getting around that. It has to be the widescreen version. So I got the widescreen version. Now, if I were to take those tapes and put it in the VCR right now and watch them on my TV in the living room, this right here is exactly what I would see. It would be, because it's letterboxed. Those black bars on that tape or on those old DVDs or on those old Laserdiscs are baked into the video image. There's no way to get around that. So whenever we're watching this video, we got the black bars at the top and the black bars at the bottom, and we just have to deal with it. Now what we can do is we can hit the zoom button on the remote, like the aforementioned guy that I discussed. We hit the zoom button on the remote and it zooms it in and it fills up more of it. It doesn't take all the black bars away, but it takes a good deal of it away. That's one way to do it. But now the studio, they're the ones who should have fixed this. So, yeah, as I said, basically back in the day, whenever you bought that, they put the black bars on top and bottom to exhibit a widescreen version. That way you could actually see the video as a director and the director of photography originally intended you to do it. So, in the early 2000s, they developed a thing called anamorphic widescreen. And anamorphic widescreen, basically what it does is it takes the pixels and it makes them taller than they are wider, So basically, the video would look like this. I got some examples here. So basically, the video would look like this. So we got the regular, just a full screen video, and then we'll switch it over to the letterbox. So you can see that there's a black bar at the top and bottom. Now, again, to display that on a widescreen TV, you're going to get the black bars on top and bottom and the pillar boxing as well, which is called window boxing. There's no way to get around that. So what they did is they decided to start doing an anamorphic widescreen, which is basically where they take the full screen image, 4:3 image, and they stretch it out, and then they cram it back in and put it back in the box. I mean, that's basically the easiest way to explain it in layman's terms. So pretty much the image is stretched vertically to fill the box, and when the DVD player decodes that, then basically it puts it all back the way it needs to be. And when we watch it on the widescreen TV, basically it ends up looking like this. You know, in the original 1.86 to 1 aspect ratio that it was originally set up to be. So that's basically just kind of a demonstration, though. I just wanted to show some quick things on why aspect ratios are good, why window boxing, why pillar boxing is good, why letter boxing is okay if it's on the Blu-ray because it's already set up that way. But I mean, it's just the thing is we need to be mindful of the original aspect ratio of the productions that we've come to love. You know, I got the Blu-ray for the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I was just so elated that they kept the original 4:3 aspect ratio, and I could watch it. It looks beautiful, absolutely stunning video quality in black and white too. And it's just, yeah, there's that. So I just wanted to show some of those things and let you guys see firsthand exactly why it's important and what's going on under the hood when you're watching your favorite productions. So, yeah, I guess thanks for watching.